This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts might just run the ball in from the outfield because they're L7 losers. We just throw it in from the outfield. Each episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and I'm a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. I'm joined by my brother and common man co-host, a guy I know can hold his chewing tobacco, Jake Miller. How you doing, bud?
Hey, doing good, buddy. How about you?
Well, so I don't know when you've had your first bit of chewing tobacco. The age of 10 or 11 is probably not it.
Nah, not that soon.
And you know, if you're gonna do it, don't exactly go on a tilt-a-whirl immediately after. I mean,
no.
But you know,
that's a bad combo.
It's a bad combo. As hopefully you'd guess based on what we've been talking about, we are talking today about the Sandlot. We're going back to the days of nostalgia, 1993, actually, directed by David Mickey Evans, written by David Mickey Evans and Robert Gunter, starring a bunch of kids who never really did much of anything besides this, but starring Tom Geary, Mike Vitar, Patrick Renna, Chauncey Leopardi, Marty York, Brandon Quinton Adams, Grant Gelt, Victor DeMata, and Shane Obadzinski. Those are all the kids. The co-stars are a little more famous. Co-starring Karen Allen, Dennis Leary, Marley Sheldon, Art LaFleur, and the Mr. Classic Baseball, James Earl Jones. Opening on April 7th, 1993. A modest hit at the time, not exactly a box office behemoth, $32.4 million, but on a $7 million budget, really made its money back on later TV runs and cassette rentals. No real nominations of any kind. Doesn't really matter. This is not. I was shocked when I saw the Rotten Tomatoes spread.
Yeah,
64% critics. I was like, okay, well, it's like critics are dumb. Sometimes, yeah. Even as a critic, I'm like, come on, guys. It's like, you're thinking too much of this. 64% critics, 89% audience. The audience nailed this one. I mean, come on. Like,
this is one of the disconnects where absolutely I gotta say the critics got it wrong.
And I don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know what the like. I had read. I saw the 64, and I was like, I got to dig into some of these. And every time I dig into them, I'm like, well, that's stupid. That's a dumb decision. Like, that's the reason. It's like, it should have been more adult, or I didn't know this, or that's a big problem I have.
It's a movie about kids.
It's a movie about kids.
So
it's a movie about kids playing baseball and being friends in the summer. Like, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's you can't go into every movie with the same sort of expectations, and I think a lot of the critics happen to do that. So this is obviously one from our childhood. We saw a lot. Yep. Being boys, played baseball all through our childhood. It hit a lot of different numbers for us. We will get into all of those. I will do a quick plot summary of The Sandlot from 1993. So this is based in the summer of 1962. In the main character is Scott Smalls, who narrates the whole thing. He moved to a suburb of LA where his mom and his new stepdad, him and his stepdad his stepdad's been around for about a year. His dad died. I think it's actually implied that he died during Korea, but I'm not sure it's actually specified specifically. But anyway.
Yeah, he just says he died when he was little.
Yeah. So his mom gets remarried and he goes to this place in LA. He's a brainy kid, not very athletic. And the mom's like, it's the summer. You got to get out there. You got to make friends. Just, get into trouble, essentially it's the 60s. What possibly could happen? So he kind of sneaks his way into a group of neighborhood boys who play at a local Sandlot because he notices that there's only 8 players on the team. So he's like, well, they need a 9th. He does not know anything about baseball, really. Doesn't know anything about the history of it, really how to play it at all.
Can't
catch, can't throw any of that. Whenever the ball is out to him, he runs it all the way in. So this local Sandlot's out there, and Benny the Jet Rodriguez is head of this group, essentially their coach and player. He's the one who essentially kind of takes pity on Smalls and is like, okay, well, we'll, everybody else is kind of like, I don't want him to be part of it. And then Benny just kind of makes it happen and coaches him up in a way where he is much more accepted. So Smalls joins the group and they just kind of get general misadventures and play baseball all the time throughout the summer. The big conflict is outside behind the Sandlot is an old house with a large English Mastiff, which the boys call the Beast. And anytime a ball goes over there, it's gone forever. So one day, Benny hits a ball and knocks the cover off the ball, and it's an omen. Oh, this is a crazy thing. It's like, oh, well, Scott's like, my stepdad's out of town. He has a baseball. It's actually a Babe Ruth signed baseball, not the best of decisions. He goes and they play with the Babe Ruth signed baseball. Scott is the one who hits it over the fence into the Beast's yard. And they're like, no, we got to do that. We got to get this ball back. And they just try every possible way to get this thing back. Very, very, the greatest thing is all the crazy ways they do it to get back. It's like, I really like the erector set catapult, the suction cup vacuum's fun. The one that really blew me away was the suspended, when they suspended over the thing. And I was like, how do these kids figure this one out? Like all the rest of them, I'm like, okay, you could talk me into this one. This one.
They put him in a catcher's chest guard and lower him down. And then he almost gets eaten. And
2 years before Mission Impossible, by the way. So Sandlot is directly responsible for Mission Impossible working.
I agree.
But essentially, Benny has a dream that Babe Ruth says, like, heroes get remembered, legends never die. You essentially got to go over there yourself. Gets a new pair of PF Flyers, goes over there, gets the ball, and runs over the fence. And the Beast follows him over the fence. They tear through town. It's chaos. And then they get all the way back. He jumps back over the fence. The Beast bursts through it, but the fence falls on the dog. Then Scott and Benny rescue the dog. The dog is grateful, and they take it to the owner, who happens to be it was James Earl Jones, Mr. Myrtle.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader. Exactly. That's exactly what we said to our kids. Like, this guy, he's Darth Vader. Yeah. But so Mr. Myrtle, the owner, used to be a baseball player, was a friend of Ruth's, gives a ball to replace the Babe Ruth ball. And life is idyllic, and they all grow up to various ways. Scott becomes a broadcaster for the Dodgers, and Benny becomes a player for the Dodgers. And it ends as Scott calls Benny stealing home. So happy ending for all. This is one of those movies where you're like, I was trying to explain why it's so great. And as I was watching it, I was like, it wasn't one thing. Why do you think this movie works so well?
I thought about this earlier. I was like, I don't know how many times we're gonna say nostalgia in this movie.
100. We're gonna say nostalgia a lot
in this episode.
Yes,
like it absolutely is. I mean, just being a kid in the summer and baseball. I mean, for us, I mean, baseball in Texas is super big, and I mean that was probably the most involved sport we really had.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was definitely
more involved in football.
I did a lot of different sports, but it was the only one that all three of us were actively wanting to play. I think you and our other brother were kind of like, okay, I guess I'll play the church volleyball league or the church basketball leagues. Neither one of y'all had any desire to ever do any football, but baseball, we're like, yep, baseball season. We're all doing it. Yep. We're playing baseball. It's a summer sport, and it's a sport where you're like, well, you're always outside during the summer anyway. And it kind of harkens back. It's like I said, the lawlessness of the 60s, where you're just like, the mom says it 5 minutes into the movie, go out there, get into trouble, do all this stuff, have fun, make friends. Like, I don't care if you like be a kid. Like, and that's kind of what this movie is. It's just a kid being kids.
Yeah, and that's what it reminds me of is, I mean, I remember several summers, you know, when I was 11, I would say 10 or 11, where jump on the bike, ride to the friend's house, ride all around this culvert down by our house, and, you know, just go be boys, go be kids. Just, and sometimes we got into a bit of trouble and stuff like that. But
with perspective, it's not really that bad. It's not like we weren't robbing anybody. We weren't doing anything lawless. We were just essentially being, we had freedom, but it's like we had freedom with, there's no money. There's no, like, you know, there's nothing like, oh, we're going to go to the movies or something like that. No, it's just like, there's limited things you can do because you're a kid, and everybody knows you're a kid, but still it was just go out and do something. And
also, you also, I mean, for us, even when you're out running wild, there's sometimes a friend might say, well, let's do this or let's do that. And you're like, my parents are going to beat my ass.
I'm not doing that. No, exactly. There's always that to keep you in check. It's like, I agree. So, I mean, like, if the layers that this movie gets right, as far as I think it's probably specific to male friendships.
Yeah.
You know, just because, like, this is a very, very boy movie. Like, yes. And I understand that aspect of it. But the thing it gets right with boy relationships is the constant, like, okay, yes, you're my friend, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to be constantly made fun of. We're going to make fun of you all the time. It is from a place of love, but you better believe it's going to happen, and you're going to buck up and figure it out.
I'm going to call you on your shit, and I'm going to rib you relentlessly.
Constantly.
No, and I know you're going to do the same to me.
Yep. And nobody's exempt. Like, it's
no. Yeah. I mean, they even give Benny shit whenever he's trying to get Smalls on. You know, like, Ham is like, I told you, Benny. You know, I mean, not even the captain of the team is exempt from some ribbing, you know. So you're right. It's a very boy movie, and especially from our background.
Absolutely.
I mean, a family of 3 boys, and I mean, we didn't really deal with girls.
Not really. I mean, we had a few cousins, but not like, it wasn't like we saw them on a regular basis, and it was not like a daily part of our life. So it was a very boy heavy environment we grew up in. That makes sense. Yeah. And I mean, I was thinking this as I was about to jump on, I was thinking, you know, it's like, this is a baseball movie, but how much baseball, it's just the idea of baseball. Like, there's no game that needs to be won. There's no keeping score. Even the game that the Sandlot guys play with the little leaguers, that's not really kept score. And it's very clear. It's like, okay, well, this is pretty dominant on one side anyway. So, I mean, there's no like, oh, did they win? Did they lose? And it's like, that's not really about winning or losing. It's just kind of the general idea of playing. And there's no get here at this time, we're going to play 9 innings, then we go home. It's like, no, we're going to be out here all day. We're going to do this all day long. And that's kind of what the summers, I really love the 4th of July scene. The 4th of July scene where they play it outside, and Benny hits the home run. Everybody's just staring at it. What was the word you used last week about nostalgia?
Anemoia.
Yeah, anemoia hit hard on that.
Nostalgia for a time, not experience.
Yes, that there's certain Texas summers, especially when we were kids. Like, it's dark, but you're like, man, it's kind of nice out here, and you're just like watching stuff like that, and you're like, man, that really hits home.
Yeah, no, they really they encapsulate childhood very well, and I think you ask why this movie works so well. I think we've done this on probably most of our episodes, but I think people can really connect whenever an adult is telling a story about their
Yes.
childhood.
Yes.
So I think this is the reason a
That's a good
Christmas
point.
story works.
Yes. It's
You know,
let me
where
tell you a story about when I was a kid. Yes.
right.
Yes.
And I think going from the adult perspective and basically outlining the absurdity of the things that I used to be involved in,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
decisions that I made, the friends that I had, like, and relaying that from an adult perspective is, I mean, it's something everyone can relate to. Where you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I did dumb crap like that.
Not
You know,
only that, like it's just you have it kind of harkens back to be like, I had a friend once say, it's like he's like, I was in my parents' bedroom and I was covered up with pillows, just like covered up there as they came in. I'm like, why would you doing that? And he's like, no, just being a weird kid. And I'm like, that sounds about right. Like that's kind of the idea of this, just kind of being your own level of weird, like that. It's almost unjudged. Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's why this movie does well and still, I mean, you know, still plays with an audience, is because you can relate to that. You can, I mean, it can you know, almost force you to look back on your own childhood and go, oh man, I remember this pickle that I was in, you know, and you're trying not to get caught and you're trying to, I mean, it's very relatable, you know,
and also
even though, every main actor is a child, but guess what? Every member of the audience has been
a child at one point.
It's relatable. Everyone has been a kid.
And it's a period piece at the same time. Being a period piece doesn't feel like it's like super retro. It kind of feels just kind of like, oh, there are kids out there. Like being in the 60s is kind of it's a feature, not it's a feature. It's not the thing. It happens to be in the 60s. Yeah, they're wearing jeans with cuffs and stuff like that. But I mean, it's not the overwhelming thing. It feels weirdly kind of modern, even though it's set in 62.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that like a kid from the 60s can identify with it. A kid from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s can identify. It's a story about kids being kids.
Yep. And also this specific level of kids, like they're grown up enough to do stuff on their own, but they're prepubescent. Like they're just starting to peak interest in like more adult things, like as in like girls and those type of things, but it's not the driving force of everything in life. It's that little in between area where they're pretty much tiny adults, but without the adult problems.
It's a strange little time in life where you're grown up to get out there and start experiencing things, but you're still too stupid to know how to actually deal with it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's learning, you know, it's experience, you know.
So the kids in this movie, they're all the characters are pretty interesting in themselves, and the baseball character, all the kids do have their own kind of identity. You know, obviously Scott Smalls, Benny, there's Ham Porter, Squints, Kenny Nunez, Bertram Grover Weeks, Timmy and Tommy Timmons. And they all have their own little personalities. The thing that really stuck with me as I watched it with my kids, and I was like, this seems like a really good movie to watch with your kids.
Oh yeah.
And 30 minutes in, I'm like, Benny the Jet is so great as a person. It's like immediately you're like, I love Benny so much. And he's a leader. He's a leader, and so my daughter plays soccer, and they're 8 years old. And generally 8 years old, they just go around and kind of kick back and forth and aggressive. There's one girl on the team who is different than any of the others. It's like she has a brain, not of an 8-year-old, and her brain not being an 8-year-old sets her apart. And you can tell this is different than anything else. That's exactly what Benny is. He is different than anybody else. It is special and it is noticeable. And his noticeable being the leader, you're like, no wonder he made Scott work. Like only Benny would make this guy work on this team because everybody else would have messed things up. I love Benny in this movie so much. And Mike Vitar does a great job at it too.
Yeah, no, he's super great in it. And yeah, you're right. I mean, stick Benny in a classroom, average student.
Yep.
Stick Benny in this scenario, average. Yep. Put him on a baseball diamond.
He's a genius. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, he's a prodigy.
Yes. Yes. Great way to put it. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And so, yeah, there are those kids. And yeah, both my kids are in sports, have been in sports, everything. And yeah,
every once in a while when you see them
going out there playing games, and then you can see a kid that you're like,
this kid is special. Yeah.
That's called a university scholarship.
Yes.
What that kid is.
It's odd that you can detect this when they're 8 years old, but you're like, this is different. There's a reason it looks different. Like this girl is too calm. She makes goals, turns around, no big deal, does it again. Like it's too natural to make it like it's like that's just what I do. Yep, it's what I do. It's part of like I walk on, I dominate, and I leave. Yep, exactly. So, so the other characters like Smalls is a pretty square kind of kid, but he's there's not really much to him besides like I'm just want to make friends, and he likes making friends, and he's easy. He's very likable. My favorite, just for the sake of like I need a spinoff of him is Ham, just because. Yeah. Ham's so enjoyable. I want to hold.
He's a ham.
I need Ham. Ham's a great way to put it. He's a ham. I need him mic'd up during a full game where he just is chatting with the guys,
just like, talk shit,
just talk crap the whole time. It's great. And calling out a shot or his flexing for the ladies at the pool. Was just, just it's like, hey,
he just cannonballs everyone.
Just crap burger that you're like, but he's my crap burger, so it's okay. Like,
right?
Great.
Like he's a complete mess, but he just owns it and wears it so well.
He's like he is completely unaware of his own deficiencies. He's like, no, I am the best.
He's like, I'm pretty much Babe Ruth. Like, so
it's great. Squints is always obviously a fun one too, just because just like the Wendy Peppercorn scene is kind of the scene, like as a boy, like looking at it like from the perspective of an adult, I'm like, he's like a 10-year-old like making out with a 17-year-old or something like that. And I'm like, that's a little weird. But at the time you're like, man, it's the dream. Kids living the dream. He's a genius.
Yeah.
So
no, I love Squints.
Yeah, he's great.
He's one of the greatest characters, and yeah, it's something you can identify with so easily because you can remember back to being at a pool when you were a kid, and you're like, oh man, that lifeguard's hot or that chick's hot. You don't know.
You don't know anything.
You wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even know what to do with her.
Yeah. What if she come up? She's like, hey, you're everything I want in life. And you go, okay, what you want to hold hands? Like, yeah, exactly. You wouldn't know where to go. Yeah. It's
so
like
it's
I said, it's the kid brain. And you're like, well, it's a dog chasing after a car. It's like, what happens if you get the car? Like it's
dude, that is the perfect analogy.
A dog chasing after a car, a kid lusting after a woman.
As having been a pre-adolescent and adolescent male, I can absolutely tell you that your pursuit of women is exactly like a dog chasing a mail truck down the street. Like, what are you going to do about it once you get there?
I don't know. Caught it.
I just got to run after it. I don't know why.
It's in my nature. It's a part of what I need to do. And
It's in my nature.
Yeah. So, it's not like lawless in this movie, But I mean, you see, so Scott's mom is around and the stepdad's in and out. He's working hard. Seems like he has a kind of important job based on what he's doing. But I mean, the mom is there. So yeah, by all means, like, and checks in, and we hear about that. Those are the only parents you hear in this movie. It's a free for all.
Yeah. It's anarchy.
It's anarchy.
Yeah. It harkens back to perhaps, we talk about Anamoya is, a nostalgia for a time that we haven't experienced. We could talk to our parents more, about how times were back then, but just a time when we had
levels. We had levels of like, our mom had a very specific rule during the summer. She goes, "You're not allowed to say you're bored. If you say you're bored, I'm going to put you to work." And so so that was always kind of like, okay, well, I can't say I'm bored. I have to go do something. I have to find out a way to do. Now, the big plus for us is we had each other to play off. Of, it was like, let's go do something. And there's always the checks and balances with that. It's not like Scott's leaving. It's like, Mom, I'm leaving, and gone. It's I'm leaving. I'm with all the guys. So, I get all that part. So I want to talk about the adults in this movie for a little bit, because there aren't many in here, but I think they play an important role. Karen Allen, I really like Karen Allen in this movie playing Scott's mom. Obviously Karen Allen, known best from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Marion Ravenwood, always dependable, very lovely in this movie. Dennis Leary, it's funny watching this movie when you're like, is Dennis Leary going to start cursing at this kid? It's so kind of not a Dennis Leary type role, like just kind of like the quieter stepdad. Like it doesn't really suit him, but at the same time, it really suits the character kind of. And then James Earl Jones coming in at the end, as in the like. You always associate supposedly James Earl Jones hates baseball, which breaks my heart because this movie, he's so good in it, talking about baseball is life. And then he has everything about baseball is good, from speech from Field of Dreams. It's so wild that, those two things, you're like, he is such a baseball guy and he hates it. It broke my heart when I read it, and I don't want to believe it.
I'm just going to act like I didn't hear that.
Exactly. Like, come on, man. You gave some of the best speeches in the history of film about baseball. So why is it baseball films work in movies so well? So essentially, when I think of like sports movies, it essentially falls, they're essentially two of the type of sport that is depicted. Like, you get the one-offs, you get the hockey every once in a while, you get the weird, like, what was the Invictus with rugby, the South African rugby. Like, you'll get the weird sports every once in a while, a couple basketball movies here and there, but it's baseball and boxing are the two. And generally, I think it has to do with the fact that they're probably older than everything else. Like
there's more history there.
There's more history behind it. So there, the joke back in the 50s is like every good in shape actor had to do a boxing movie because they had to get their shirt off on film. And there's so many baseball movies along the way. And that's going to be my poll for a dumbass in a minute. But why is baseball, is the romantic notions of baseball so cinematic in general?
I think so. For me, baseball, there's something I can't put my finger on, but it's being out on the field, smelling the grass, like, getting your pants dirty because you slid in. And
John Fogerty's playing, put me in, coach. I
was fixing to say that.
So
there's songs made over the sport is put me in, coach, and take me out to the ball game.
The stupid Bruce Springsteen, Glory Days, Bruce Springsteen. Those type of songs. You're just like, it's a very, like, it's all nostalgia again. Like, despite all the technological advances there's been from the late 1800s to now, baseball is generally the same thing. Like there are little differences, obviously mounds or, technology replay, obviously cameras and the general play of batters, integration, obviously. But but the general idea of the game is not that different. Like if you showed somebody from the 30s an NFL game today, they'd be like, this is insane. It's like a barbarian sport, but it's relatively the same as it is now. It's America's pastime for a reason.
Yeah. No, I love baseball. And like I said, there's not one thing that I can really put my finger on, but just, I remember as a little leaguer, just, okay, start of the season, you get your uniforms.
It's like,
and
who do
our
I care about?
uniforms were always, they were MLB teams.
Yep.
And so you'd have the MLB hat and you'd have it. It was usually just a
like a t-shirt jersey.
Screen printed on.
Yep.
But you got your pants, pull them socks up because I saw how that guy wears them.
Yep.
You got your cleats. You're like, man, I'm going to run so fast in these things. And just like, I'm a baseball player. Like it was empowering as a kid.
Absolutely. It felt like I'm doing something substantial. It is great. Like this is a part of it. So the little league team I associate with you is, I don't know if it's the same one that you associate with. What major league team is the one that you think of whenever you think of being a little leaguer?
Oakland A's.
I think it's the Blue Jays. I always assume
that was a good year.
That was a good year. I remember you were on a good team the year you were on the Blue Jays, but A's were a part of it.
Yeah. So I was A's for a couple years, and then I was actually Phillies on a pretty good year.
I remember that too. Yes.
We had fitted hats.
I do remember that.
When I was on the Phillies, and I was like, man, I made it. Man, this ain't even a snapback.
You see this 6 3/4? Man, I'm really going somewhere.
But yes, the Blue Jays. That was probably.
I remember that.
Yeah. When I was on the Blue Jays, I played third base, and it was.
Yeah, I get it.
Pretty sweet.
I was the Red Sox. I was on the team with my best friend, coached by my best friend's dad. Like everything was great about that team. I loved it. That's like, okay, that was probably the best I remember. And then I remember I was on the Rockies. I think for like 3 straight years I was on the Rockies. Our little brother was he was on the Mets. I remember the Mets for the longest time. He's always the Mets. Like and
he also played club ball.
Yeah, too. Yeah. He played club ball. He played a little in high school. So he was the best of the three of us. But that's kind of the thing we like. And obviously, like, we played baseball all the time. And I was a minor league radio broadcaster for all those years. Like baseball is something that it's not like we've ever lost it. Like we still love, like,
absolutely. Yeah.
Now a little bit how the sausage is made. We record these a little ahead of time. Right this very second, a World Series game is going on. So, it's a part of it. Like it's always in the atmosphere, and there's always something that's like. The other thing about baseball that is incredible that kind of lends it's so there all the time from the first day of April until the last day pretty much the last day in October. There's probably a baseball game on. Like they very rarely don't have baseball to watch. So it's all over the place. It's hard to get away from. If you want to seek baseball out, you can seek some baseball out.
Yeah. Well, I was watching something the other day, and they were talking about betting, and this guy was trying to bet on the World Series and stuff. And he was explaining how it was just tough for him to follow it just because there's like, what is it? Like 162 games?
162 games between 30 teams, 162 games. So,
he was just like, I don't have that kind of time.
Well, I watch a lot. So my wife's an Astros fan. I'm a Rangers fan, but so between the two of them, we probably catch 80 games. Yeah, exactly. Rangers, like we live in Texas. What do you expect? But between the Astros and the Rangers, I probably watched at least 80 games. Now, the other good thing about baseball, at least these days, it's 3.5 hours long. You don't necessarily have to pay attention to every single pitch. And
Right.
I pay attention to a lot of that, but it's very a passive game. Like it's not like so at least as a as a bystander watching it, it's a part that you can like, oh, feel like I'm a part of it, but not actually be a part of it.
Yeah, actually, I read something where, and this is a long time ago. I probably couldn't even tell you what decade it was, but there was a complaint with baseball that it was too slow.
Sure.
So briefly, they experimented with having two pitchers' mounds. So that way they could speed it up.
Okay.
But then everyone hated it because they couldn't get a break. They're like, when am I going to pee or go get a beer or get some peanuts?
The plus is that there's a lot of off time. You might miss an incredible play, but generally you're not going to probably miss something. Yeah. That's a good point. Like it's a very stop start of a sport.
Yeah. And it's just not a lot of work to be a baseball fan.
Yeah, it's not.
Like,
just watch it.
You go out, hey, let's get a hot dog, some nachos, some beer, It's
a very simple sport to watch, to understand. Hit the ball, go to first, go to second, go to third, go home. Like it's probably the reason kids gravitate towards it so much. There's not much to it. It's the reason kids play soccer. It's because go to the ball, kick it in there. Like when you get older, obviously there's the skill to it, but the same thing. Like baseball,
you have to learn how to take a fall.
Yeah, you have to know
and grab your shin,
and then jump up and say you're fine. But no, like the way a T-baller and the way a professional plays, the general idea of it is pretty much the same. So I mean, I get that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it's kind of keep your eye on the ball. That doesn't change from the time you're in T-ball until you're a major leaguer.
Yep. I took his live. Why
keep your eye on the ball.
Okay, before we keep going, buddy, I have a couple pieces of trivia for you about this movie. Little interesting things. Two members of the Sandlot group were also in the Mighty Ducks. The Kenny Nunez was in the first and second one, and then Benny the Jet, Mike Vitar was in the second and third ones. So they're both in the second ones together. So they kind of have the crossover of that. As far as the post childhood careers of any of these kids, nothing really panned out to like any sort of success except for Tom Geary, the guy who played Smalls. Went on to be in a couple other things, most notably Mystic River from Clint Eastwood.
Okay.
He was the girl in that movie who's killed. He was engaged to her. He plays a very vital role in that. Also, one of the 1,000 of anonymous faces in Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, as soon as I rewatched it, I went, yeah.
Which one is he in? What about Black Hawk Down is specific about that? Like, is he the one that I'm trying to like. I kind of differentiate Black Hawk Down by what happens to them in the movie. Like, oh, Tom Hardy is the one who almost got shot, but the guy goes out and saves him, and then the other guy gets shot and dies. Like that's kind of those type of things. Like, oh, the guy from Game of Thrones was in the helicopter and he was one of the snipers who was killed. Like that's kind of how you differentiate from, because there are so many people in Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
I can't remember who he is.
I can't either, to be honest.
Yeah.
No, I mean, rewatching this, I was like, oh, he was in Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
And I can't really remember. Yeah.
What is he? Maybe he's the one where he was lost. He's like, come to us. It's like, F you, come to me. Like, maybe one of those type of guys, maybe lost he was maybe the one that tripped, and that tripped as he left the building, and that's the reason he didn't get shot, and that the son shoots his dad. Do you know what I'm talking about? The Black Hawk Down. I think that might have been him.
He's not the guy that got lost, was it?
I thought he might have been.
Was he
I
the guy that
think
got
so.
lost?
I think
Was it?
so. Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, he's one of the hundreds of faces in Black Hawk Down. We have to go watch Black Hawk Down now. That's
Yeah, I
one.
know.
That's
Now
one
I'm
we'll
like,
eventually do on this podcast, just because of the
sure.
amount of people in that movie, and
Yeah.
it's incredible anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
The grown up Scotty,
Mhm.
uncredited guy named Arliss Howard. Arliss Howard has been in 1,000 things. Very character actor guy. Played in Moneyball for a little bit. Lost World. A lot of other stuff. The most important, though, Private Cowboy in Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you think of like, man, that's like, you think of the, like, you definitely know who Private Cowboy is, but you don't necessarily
Yes.
know who Arliss Howard is. Arliss Howard, if you look at the stuff he's been in throughout the years, you're like, man, he has been in everything. He was in Amistad, like I said, the Lost World, Jurassic Park, Sandlot, what's the Oliver Stone, Natural Born Killers, Full Metal Jacket, obviously, all sorts of stuff. He is in all sorts of stuff across the board. So a lot of kind of stuff, cool stuff that happens along the way there. Okay, Jake, it's time for my favorite part of the film, part of the podcast. Every week I go through the filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. It is time for Poll for a Dumbass. Today we are going through modern day baseball movies. Now, when I say modern day, like, we won't go into Bang the Drum Slowly or Pride of the Yankees from like the old timey days. More the modern, like, probably might have seen these type of things. These run the gamut across the board. Though I'm not including the Sandlot on here, just because obviously we have seen it. Okay,
Right.
I'm going to start with my personal favorite baseball movie, the best depiction of minor league baseball and the toil and trouble it brings. Bull Durham,
Oh, of course.
of course. The most charismatic man in the history of humanity is Kevin Costner in that movie.
Mhm.
Like any woman who's like, man, I love Kevin Costner. I was like, well, yeah, I've seen Bull Durham. I get it. Yeah, absolutely. We also just talked about Arliss Howard having a little bit part in the end of this. And the movie that kind of romanticized baseball to such a degree, Moneyball.
Oh, I love Moneyball.
I love
I
Moneyball
love
too.
Moneyball so much.
It's a plus you've always been kind of a closet A's fan, just from like being a kid
Yeah.
and growing up, and so I get that. And also, like, the math nerd of me, like, I like all the analytics stuff and
The stats
yeah,
that
I
go
love all that.
into it. And yeah.
It's Brad Pitt's
Yeah.
best. It's Brad Pitt's best performance. Like, he's so good in that movie.
Yeah. It's I can't say enough good stuff about
Yes,
it.
I love Moneyball too.
I mean, anytime I watch Moneyball, especially like if it's off season
Mhm.
for baseball or something,
Yeah,
it just makes me fall back in love with
yes,
baseball.
it really
and
does.
it makes me miss it so
Yes,
much.
it's absolutely that. And you think about it, you're like, it's not exactly like a happy movie. It's not like a
Not
movie that, like,
really.
it's not like, oh man, baseball is this happy fun time. You're like, no, it's a lot of work, and they make it seem
It's
like
a
lot of work.
grind.
It's a grind, and they make it out to be that. It makes a lot of sense.
It's brutal.
So the other James Earl Jones movie, the other Kevin Costner movie, a movie that will probably always make you cry, Field of Dreams.
Oh, of course.
Man, my wife was lamenting the death of Ray Liotta, and she was saying, it's like, Ray Liotta has never been more handsome than when he was in Field of Dreams, and he comes out as Shoeless Joe Jackson. He's like, I'm kind of always mixed on Ray Liotta. He's great in Field of Dreams. He's really, really good in Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
So this might be the first chance that I get to actually stump you on one you haven't seen. How about 8 Men Out?
No.
It's really well done. Not much of a like, oh, well, what about 8 Men Out? Like, what's the thing that makes 8 Men Out awesome? You're like, it's like just kind of the story in general. It's about the 1918 Black Sox, the cheating scandal. A lot of famous faces: John Cusack, Charlie Sheen, David Strathairn, a lot of different people in there. It's a good movie. I do enjoy it. I'm not exactly surprised that you haven't seen it. 8 Men Out. Yes. Good, solid movie. Kind of the difference. It paints a lot of different pictures of how the economics of baseball was in 1918 compared to how they are now. Like a pitcher didn't get his bonus because he won 22 games instead of 23 games, because that's just how pitchers were. Like, it's just like, he won 22 games. That's nuts. But but it's kind of the way things were. Talk about a sheen, like a romanticized baseball from the absolute pinnacle of how it could be. Dennis Quaid in The Rookie. Yes. That's a good one. Like, it's just like Dennis Quaid at his most dad heavy. He was like, it's like, I really enjoyed Dennis Quaid in this one. Excuse you. But I mean,
sorry about that.
No, not at all. But I mean, it's a very Disney movie. It's very like, oh, it's clean and not exactly a whole lot of, it's there's going to be a happy ending to it, but it's still got all the fun things that make you kind of give you the goosebumps. Yeah.
It's still a good feel good.
Yeah.
Baseball movie. I mean,
so this is the first one of this list that I haven't seen. It's more known for its scenes than it is for its actual, like, oh yeah, I love that film. Robert Redford in The Natural. Yeah. I've never seen it. I'm sure I have I've seen pieces. I've obviously seen the thing where he knocks out the lights and all that kind of stuff, but I can't say like for certainty, like, yep, I've seen all that and I know what happened. Like, I know how it ends because everybody knows how it ends. That's the most famous thing about it. But I mean, I can't say I remember anything about it besides it's Robert Redford and Glenn Close is in it. But yeah. Now
that is the last movie I watched with our late grandfather.
Really? Oh, that's nice. So what a nice little bookmark into that. That's sweet. I'm gonna have to watch The Natural now for sure. The opposite of Moneyball in pretty much every single way, as in like, okay, the hard work it takes to become a major league player. The opposite, but at the same time, just an absolute blast of debauchery and fun. Major League, the first one. Yeah, I love it. It's fun. Great. It's fun. That's a great way to put it. Just a lot of fun. Like, who's not going to enjoy that? Like Wesley Snipes. So the fun thing about that I read about that Wesley Snipes in reality is very unathletic. And so every time he runs, it's in slow motion because he's not going fast. Like, it has to make him look fast. So in reality, Wesley Snipes is not very athletic, even though he's in Major League. He's not in Major League too, but white man can't jump on it. But apparently it's just all movie tricks. So speaking of late and great, Chadwick Boseman getting his breakout role in a movie I have not seen either, but as Jackie Robinson in the film 42.
I've seen it.
You have? Did you like it?
Yep, I did.
I've heard good things. I've heard it's nice. Like, oh, that's nice. Like, it was not. It's nothing that you wouldn't expect it to be. Like,
something. What I liked about that movie is that I think oftentimes Jackie Robinson is thought of as like this submissive guy that just took all this
crap,
abuse and just I mean, just dealt. I guess
turn the other cheek was the big thing with everybody kind of associated.
He's portrayed as a victim.
Yes.
Now in 42, I think you see his anger, his resentment, his resistance.
He wants to be angry. Yes.
He wants to beat everyone's ass. He wants, but he knows he ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And he's a trailblazer. And so I think that's even a better story rather than being a meek character that's like, okay, I'll just take this abuse and move on. He's conflicted. Knows I have to take this abuse to make the way.
That's really interesting. I need to watch it. Yeah, I need to watch it because, obviously Black Panther's coming out again. I need to, can't get enough of Chadwick Boseman. He's great in everything anyway. So, I mean, I'm sure he does a great job.
That's what I love about 42 is he's not portrayed as a victim.
Good. That's I like that. I like that perspective. So I'm going to be excited to go watch that with that idea in mind. So it's obviously a baseball movie, but it's not a professional baseball movie in this kind of sense. But regardless, it is a professional baseball movie. The most underrated Tom Hanks performance, A League of Their Own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's extremely watchable. Two things. One,
Yeah.
the most underrated Tom Hanks has been, he's hilarious in the whole movie when his long peeing scene, man, it's great. And the way he yells at people. Also, one of the few times in film history where Madonna is redeemable. You're like, I like Madonna in this movie. Like every other time you're just like, it's not really up my style, but I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
There's no crying in baseball.
And also, this is I think it came out a year or two before The Sandlot, and he's like, you're killing me, so and so. You're freaking killing me. Like he actually is saying that before Killing Me Smalls comes out. So maybe the precursor to that.
Right.
This is the oldest movie on this list from I think is 79. The Walter Matthau starring Little League drama, The Bad News Bears.
I have not seen the original.
Not seen that one. Have you seen the Billy Bob Thornton one?
I've seen that one.
I've seen that one too, and
I haven't seen the original.
I've seen the original. It's a lot more fun and a lot more subversive than the new one is. Like the new one's kind of like, well, these kids are just kind of shits.
Yeah.
Like the one in the 70s, you're like, oh, these fun little kids, and so yeah, I it's just kind of a separation. Along the same lines of The Sandlot, you kind of think the Disney-fied 90s movie. I got 3 movies in a row run here. I'm going to knock them out 3 in a row, and you're going to say yes to all 3 probably. So just kind of in the same realm for all 3. Rookie of the Year. That's the one with the kid with the tight tendon in the arm. Little Big League, the kid who runs the Twins, and Angels in the Outfield.
Yes.
So which is your favorite of the 3? Because like I'll always have a place in my heart for Angels in the Outfield just because of like, oh, Matthew McConaughey's the third baseman. Adrian Brody's the left fielder. Like it's kind of goofy things like that. And it's just like kind of a sweet movie and there's all like little touches. But I really love Rookie of the Year. Just the idea of like, just like,
Rookie of the Year would have to take it. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a way for
it's fantasy.
You know,
it's kid fantasy.
Where you can go, oh, I can go play in the major league.
Exactly. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
But I like when he's like, pitcher's got a big butt, and he's
all the fun little goofy stuff. Yeah. That's always fun. Yeah. So the only the next couple ones are a little kind of off kilter. One of the newer ones, but more romance based. How about Fever Pitch with Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore?
No,
it's about a guy obsessed with the Red Sox before they won the World Series. The fact that they keep losing over and over doesn't matter, and it kind of ruins his relationship with this woman, despite the fact that that's what he loves. I really liked it. It's probably the peak of Jimmy Fallon trying to be a movie star, but it's more on the idea of Drew Barrymore being cute. But it's worth seeking out. It was fun because they were filming it and they didn't expect the Red Sox to win the World Series, and then 2004 happened, and they had to kind of change the whole movie. We talked about Clint Eastwood a little bit earlier. How about Trouble with the Curve?
No,
I haven't seen it either. I've heard conflicting things. I've heard some people going like, yeah, it's nice because like Amy Adams and Clint Eastwood's nice. And, Justin Timberlake's kind of overmatched, but at the same time, like it's not a bad movie, kind of an old school, new school version of baseball. Kind of like the anti-Moneyball against analytics. Okay, so I got one more left for you. You are doing spectacular. You've only missed 3. So you're 12 for 15 right now. I have one more left. I put this last because I read there's a guy I follow on Twitter who's making a book about baseball movies, and he's going around to baseball players and says, "What's your favorite baseball movie?" And almost every one of them keeps saying the same answer. It's For Love of the Game. Have you seen For the Love of the Game? It's another Kevin Costner movie. It's a romantic drama. So he is pitching I think he's a guy. He's in his late 30s, early 40s pitching, and it's kind of like, okay, this is. I don't think I'm going to get my contract renewed. Things are going badly, but he's pitching a perfect game, and he's flashing back to the points of his career, thinking about this woman, Kelly Preston. It's a cute movie. I really like it, but for some reason, baseball players love it, and it really blew me away. John C. Reilly is his catcher, which is always fun.
Oh, nice.
So, it's worth seeking out. It's not bad.
Yeah, I know of it, but
Yeah.
I've watched it.
Well, that's, I should be less surprised that you did as well as you did on the baseball movies. 12 of 16, only missed 8 men out. The original Bad News Bears, For Love of the Game, and Trouble with the Curve. So, I mean,
Is this my best record?
you did really, really well. I want to say the small budget, big box office, you went 12 for 15 from the Blair Witch Project. So this is as good as you have ever done. So, I mean, one day we're going to do a World War II movie, and then you're just going to knock out every World War II movie. No. So you're just going to wipe the floor with that. So yeah, exceptional job on Pull for a Dumbass today.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So we love like I said, we love baseball the whole time. Like we have I was the youngest minor league broadcaster in the state of Texas at one point. From what I understand, the most professional. And you have a special connection to baseball too, as well.
Yeah. So, my wife and I are huge Texas Rangers fans.
As you should be.
And I took her to the first Rangers game she had ever been to, and she fell in love as well. And at that time, we were newlyweds, and our favorite player was Ian Kinsler. Well, we're expecting our first child, a daughter, and so we ended up naming her Kinsler. So our daughter's name is Kinsler.
It's incredibly unique, and it's something else. It's my first niece, your first daughter, obviously. So it's always a fun little thing to be like, Kinsler, that's a fun name. Where'd that come from? It's like, the baseball player Ian Kinsler. Yeah, it's always a fun, cute little thing.
It's funny. We have come across other kids named that.
Really?
But not many.
No, yeah. It's nice to have something unique. Yeah. It means something.
But
yeah.
Ian Kinsler was just recently, I think last month, inducted into the Rangers Hall of Fame.
Yes, he was. Yes. It's
so.
I want to say he hit a home run on the day of my son's birth. Like it's always got that kind of cool little connections with stuff like that. So it's like you said, it's difficult to not be romantic about baseball.
Right. Yeah. And our youngest brother, obviously also a big baseball fan, big Rangers fan, but he, after our daughter was born, he actually got us a autographed photo of Kinsler, which is hanging in her room as we speak. So.
Fantastic. Oh, and him himself.
That was 11 years ago.
And he himself named his daughter after a baseball player as well. So, I mean.
Really?
Yes. So, I mean, Holland, Derek Holland.
I thought you were talking about Kinsler.
No. Sorry. Our brother named his daughter after a baseball player as well. So, I mean, it runs in the family. There's a reason we love it so much. Yeah, absolutely. So each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake will pepper me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Sometimes it's trivia. Sometimes it is not. It is unfortunately time for me to be
in the hot box.
I am in the hot box. What do you got for me today, buddy?
All right. So as we've discussed, we both grew up playing baseball.
Yes.
And so what is your favorite position? But you can't say missionary. We're talking baseball, dude.
Talking baseball. Okay, so I was always bigger than most kids. Like I was just always large, tall wise. So naturally, I was always at first base, And because of that, I gravitated towards first base, and I got used to it, and I really liked it. So I always associated like where was my skill set? It was first base. I would play around a little bit. I never pitched. I pretty much did everything except pitch. Like these days, like everyone's like, well, we got to try to see if you can be a pitcher. That just wasn't the case back in the 90s, at least. So I was a catcher for a little bit. I wasn't that good at it. I really liked playing first base. That was the one. You were a third baseman?
Yeah.
And our little brother was a catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
yeah. He was primarily catcher. I was third base.
I did a little outfield too. Outfield mostly. I didn't really do any infield throwing. I was either at first base or in the outfield.
Yeah, I could never hack it as a pitcher. I was either like center field, left field, or third base because I had a pretty good arm. I mean, if you're first base or third base, you got to be able to huck it across the entire diamond.
Yeah.
And then if you're outfield, you got to be able to get that sucker back into the infield.
Yeah, that was my big advantage when I played the outfield. Like I would really toss it back in. Yep.
Yeah. But when it came to just one after the other, nah.
the repetition.
My shoulder wasn't doing that. So
yeah.
No, I could huck it pretty good, 3-4 times a game, but I'm not sitting up there doing it the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't pitch, but
I never even tried. I don't think they even tried to make me pitch.
Nah.
Nope. Yeah, neither.
All right. Well, you kind of touched on it earlier as far as being able to hold tobacco. What was your first experience with dipping or chewing tobacco?
You're well aware of this, so we'll tell the viewers. I have never been inclined to chew or want to chew tobacco. So being with the baseball team, you're surrounded by 95% of baseball players who do dip and or chaw or anything like that. It's just what they do. I don't know what it is. It's part of it. It's part of it. Yeah. Just you're a minor league baseball player. You dip somehow. So it was always around, but I never had any desire to do it. But all it did is make me want to spit all the time. So I spit when I'm outside. It's still something I hold. If I'm outside, I'm spitting. But my only experience with chewing tobacco, I believe, is from you guys. You guys bet me $20 to have a pouch, a mint skull pouch, in my mouth for 5 minutes, and it was terrible. I hated it. In fact, I think it's like, why are my ears on fire? Like why my ears were burning.
Like my ears are hot.
My ears are hot. Like, I hated it so much. And it was not worth the $20. However much you paid me, however much it wasn't worth it. I did not like it for 1 minute.
You got pretty sick.
I did not enjoy it. I am more of a tobacco stick guy. I'm much more of a cigarette guy than I am I'm much more inclined to cigars than I am to chewing tobacco. It's never been up my alley.
There's definitely a tobacco thing in baseball.
Yes.
As far as dipping or chewing.
It's remarkable. Like I think 3 years ago they outlawed having, like, you can't have cans on you. Like they said, you can't be in the dugout, can't be on you. It just means it's in the clubhouse. Like, it doesn't mean that you just can't have it on you. People are still doing it because you can't outlaw that in baseball. It's too much. It's so ubiquitous in baseball. It's just a thing. Like, I don't know. I don't dip. I know how to flick a tobacco cup. Like, I know how to do. Yeah, exactly. So it's just a part of it. Yeah.
No. Yeah. But
like steroids in the 90s.
Right. Yeah. It's like you asked Barry Bonds not to do steroids.
Yeah.
You're ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
for our audio listeners, Jake demonstrated his gum line. I'm sorry for any periodontists who are watching on today.
I don't recommend it.
You're not wrong. It's not a good habit to have.
No, it isn't. Yeah, we have to have our disclaimer at this point. We're not dipping.
He's we're
You
not
can play baseball without dipping.
you can. I mean, you can
Yeah.
you can play baseball without steroids.
You can chew gum.
But you know what? It's way better if you do. Like it's
I've always enjoyed it.
I get it.
All right. So, what is your favorite baseball player of all time? I'm not saying like in your lifetime, like since you've been a fan, since you've been watching. I'm saying if you go historically, favorite player.
So I really like a guy I never saw play, a guy I never had the opportunity to play, a guy I've never seen hit a baseball. But I enjoy every time I see him, every time I hear about him, every time I read about him. Going back to Jackie Robinson, Pee Wee Reese, the second baseman for the Dodgers at the time, whenever Jackie Robinson was there, famously went over and put his arm around him, kind of the opening for the world to be like, hey, it's okay to like black people, I guess. It's
so crazy now.
It's so insane to think about, but I mean, that is the actual case. No, whenever, like, everything I read about him, the more I love him. Like he, essentially whenever the Dodgers were thinking about pulling Jackie Robinson up from AAA, they had a petition and Reese said, I'm not going to sign it, which killed the petition because he was such a force in the clubhouse. He was an incredible hitter as it is. When somebody's like, hey, what do you think about Robinson coming up still in your spot? And it's like, well, if he's better than I am, then he deserves it. Like, it was just, he's a decent human being. And everything I read about him, I love to hear. Everything about him, I love. As far as anything else is like an actual player, like when fun stuff, it's Joe DiMaggio. Any Joe DiMaggio story is great upon great. Like, he's just so wacky. Like, oh, I'm just going to randomly marry Marilyn Monroe at the end, after my career is over. Maybe beat the hell out of her every once in a while, divorce her, and then be with her for the rest of my life until she kills herself. So, I mean, then as incredible as a baseball player is, also one of the best Seinfeld anecdotes of all time. I mean, so yeah, Pee Wee Reese, Joe DiMaggio, two guys I never saw play a single minute, but I always have affinity for.
Yeah. There's plenty of names that come to mind.
Mickey Mantle's a close third.
Yeah. And I was kind of thinking about Ty Cobb.
Yeah.
Then I looked up more information on him. And
he's not a great
he used to sharpen his spikes whenever this integration was taking place.
Yes.
Led by Jackie Robinson. Whenever integration was taking place, he specifically sharpened his spikes, and he would, if he was sliding in, he would spike black players real bad.
Ty Cobb, not known as the greatest human in the world, but I mean,
good baseball player, but well,
it's
it's kind of like saying O.J. Simpson was a great football player, but
it's that Dave Chappelle joke. He sees O.J. Simpson and some lady goes like, how can you say hi to that murderer? It's like, excuse me, ma'am, that murderer ran for 2,000 yards in a season. It's like
separating the art from the artist.
He's like, how can you like Ty Cobb? Excuse me, he hit 367. I almost forgot another guy I did see and forgot about, another team I played on, the Padres, whenever I was in Little League. Tony Gwynn. Oh, yeah. If you ever read Tony Gwynn stories, hilarious, because every pitcher hated Tony Gwynn because he's an old school player. Like, he doesn't hit home runs, he doesn't steal bases, he hits singles and doubles. All he does all the time, singles and doubles. Doesn't strike out, walks, singles, doubles. He is a baseball analytics dream. But he doesn't hit home runs. Yeah.
Well, Moneyball.
And played his whole career in San Diego, so nobody ever saw him.
Yeah. Get your ass on base and advance runners.
Yep.
That's
absolutely.
What wins games.
That's what wins games. Absolutely.
All right. Which one of these characters in this film do you most identify with?
That's a good question. Good question. I would say, as far as Okay, so um personality wise, it'd probably be Bertram Grover Weeks, just because it's like he's like kind of he's there. He's not really he's a part of everything, but he's not necessarily he's like, I'm not the guy at the forefront. I'm not the guy making screw ups. Like this, like, hey, he's the guy who brought tobacco. Or so like every once in a while he'll be the guy, but it's not something like, oh, I do this. Like, so personality wise, it's probably him.
Yeah,
Just based on everything. Like
I
it's
can
like
see that.
how many like I want to I want to humble myself. I can't say, oh, Benny the Jet. It's like no. That was like sports wise was never like, it's either Scotty or Bertram for me. Like probably closer to Bertram, just because of like I was a little more confident and I was a big gangly kid. But so that's probably the one I would probably associate with. What about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Just kind of well, yeah, you kind of look the same when you were
Little,
kids. Like,
a small tan kid.
yeah, exactly. That's just the small tan kid. Yeah,
You know,
it's a good way to put it. Yeah,
kind of there. All right, y'all want to lower me over the fence and I can grab
it
it?
was like, you know,
Okay.
it's like we need to put somebody over in this catcher's bench. Like, you know what? I'll do that. That sounds like something I would do.
No, and then like when I was a cop, they were like, well, who can get over that fence, or who can climb through that hole, or who's going through the window or something? And I was always kind of the
You're the
little guy that was like, well, all right.
You're the Forrest Gump scene when they blow up the foxhole. It's like, Gump, get in there, and here we go.
Gun and flashlight. I love the scene whenever they lower Yaya down, and then the dog gets after him, and they pull him up. He drops the ball. They pull him back over the fence, and he's like, he does,
I saw that. It was like, what is he doing?
yeah, he's just nuts from fear.
I do love the idea.
Pull him
like,
back.
I'm so scared. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, you just,
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's funny. That's good. I like that too.
So obviously, the beast, the dog,
yes,
has an important role in this movie.
Yes.
So, and I remember, obviously the beast redeems himself from his reputation.
Yes.
And I remember when we were kids, we went and watched this in theaters, and as soon as I got back home, I went out in the backyard and played with our dog. But what I have had negative dog encounters.
Yes.
So what is your scariest dog encounter?
I've always been pretty lucky when it comes to dog encounters. I remember, when I think of stuff like that, I always think of just the more adult exasperation involved with it. Like I've been with, I used to have a little Chiweenie, probably 8 pounds. And I remember a bitterly, bitterly cold day in my apartment. And I take him out front in this little, 4x4 patch of grass, and it is freezing cold. And he's been in this apartment all day. And I'm like, please, God, like, just please, all I want you to do is just go to the bathroom. So I go back inside. And that's kind of the thing I don't really associate like dogs.
That's like the most negative dog experience you've ever had.
I've been lucky with, I remember when I was a kid, a friend of mine had a dog, and it was big, and I got scared, and it was chasing me around. It wasn't chasing me. It was a big dog, wanted to play, and it was following me around. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was trying to bite me. I've never been bitten by a dog, or anything like that. I know you've had a couple of fun experiences, and as even outside of being a police officer.
Yeah. Well, whenever I believe you were on your honeymoon.
Sounds right.
And I was taking care of Lily.
Yes, my dog, who I still have, still alive.
Yep. Well, I went in the backyard to feed and water her and check on her, and she ran out and then went running around the neighborhood. I was frantically chasing her because I thought, I can't tell my brother I lost your dog
on my honeymoon. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
take care of your dog.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up chasing her down and pinning her up in like the
corner.
corner of the driveway.
Yeah.
And I went forwards towards her, and then she got scared
Really bone
and
up.
oh, big time. Exposed her teeth, growling at me, and I went, do I want to tell my brother that I lost his dog or I had to kill his dog?
By the way,
So
Lily
I
is the
went,
most docile dog in the history of dogs.
yeah. Well, and she was young as hell.
Yeah, she was
back
really
then,
young.
too.
Yeah, at the time. That makes sense.
But anyways, I was like, all right, I'm out. I go back to your place, and she just
she followed you back.
went right back in, and I shut the gate. But
No, I've been lucky.
I've had other experiences as well. I've been bitten.
I've been lucky. I've always been lucky when it comes to dog experiences. I mean, like never really had anything super negative. My wife was bitten as a kid. So I mean, not necessarily like a mauling situation, but it's close.
Yeah.
I know other situations like that. So I mean, I've always gotten lucky.
Yeah. All right, final one.
Okay.
Best baseball movie ever. Name it.
It's Bull Durham. It's adult. It's catches the griminess of minor leagues. It's the most charismatic characters, well-rounded characters across the board. The most attractive Susan Sarandon has ever been. Well written, fun, rewatchable. Bull Durham. Field of Dreams and Moneyball 2A,
Yeah.
2B. Like,
Yeah.
So it's right there. But I mean, Bull Durham's the one I default to.
Yeah. Now I'm with you. I would probably put Moneyball number one, and
Not
then
surprising.
probably Field of Dreams, and
Yeah.
then probably Bull Durham.
It makes sense.
Probably.
I mean, it's
That's the way
those,
I'd go, probably.
that's the Mount Rushmore. Like,
Yeah.
whenever Moneyball came out, it's like, okay,
Exactly.
Bull Durham, Moneyball, Field of Dreams, and then throw in your fourth, whatever that wants to be.
Right.
Like,
what faces we gonna put on the mountain? It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter what order they're in.
They're up there. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
They're classics for a reason, and they always will be classics. And as soon as it's funny as it was always Bull Durham, Field of Dreams is like, okay, well, nothing's gonna top that, and then Moneyball comes out, and it's like, well, that's up there. Like, it's never going away. It's gonna be Moneyball for the like. And they don't really make sports movies anymore. Like, not really those kind of
Not
movies.
lately.
Not lately. So I wouldn't. It's gonna take some, like, Moneyball's a different kind of movie. So
Yes.
I mean,
Different sports movie.
yeah. So it'd be surprising for something to come out. So yeah. So Bull Durham would be my answer.
All right. Well, that's all I got.
Well, thanks, buddy. That was
You're free to leave.
I appreciate it. I'm luckily colder than I should have been now after out of the hot box. So before we go, what is your film rating for The Sandlot?
Awesome.
That's
Yep.
it. I'm not sure it needs much more answer than that. Like, I was looking at other, like, on Letterboxd, obviously you can see other people's ratings. And I was like, well, I have my rating and I don't care what other people say. And other people are like, whatever idiot thinks this is bad can, kiss my ass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 5 stars. I'm like, okay, well, let's like, it is what it is, but it's still exceptional at what it is. I have 4.0 out of 5.0. But it's difficult to, you can't compare it to everything else. It's based on it's perfect for what it is. For what it is perfect.
And I can understand a non-baseball person, especially baseball is a very American thing.
Yes.
So I can understand someone from Europe.
Yep. Not caring. Yep.
Not being able to relate to it.
Yep. Absolutely.
know,
Even
just
a female,
to say
even a woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
I would have a difficult time relating to a movie about rugby or soccer.
Yes.
Or not as much soccer anymore, but
I know what you mean. Yes.
Aussie rules football or something. I'd be like, I have no idea. So I can understand how, if you're not a baseball person, this probably won't relate to you. But if you are,
This is up your alley.
This is a banger.
Absolutely. And if it's ever on TV, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it every time. I can't wait to watch it with my grandkids. It's going to be great. And they'll be like, what is this? It's baseball. Fall in love with it, please. Yes, it is wonderful. Go watch The Sandlot. I highly encourage it. It's on Disney Plus. Feel free. That just about does it for this episode of The Film Critic and The Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter, NebBizBen, and Letterboxd at Neb18, on Instagram, Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, Ice Cream for Freaks. You can follow my other writing on the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. I am writing non-stop because it is stupid studio movie season where they're just releasing everything possibly they can before the Oscars come out. I have reviews coming up of all sorts of stuff this week. Also got some Oscar blind spots for 2002. Trying to knock out those kind of things. I got a movie. There's a movie on Netflix called The Wonder that I'm reviewing this week. All sorts of stuff coming. You can find me on other pods at the Daily Fluids of Podcasting all over the airwaves. Jake, where can the people find you? In a dilapidated house with a big fat dog at the back?
Not that bad. No, I'm with my Wendy Peppercorn.
There you go. And your 8 kids?
So, no, yeah. I met my wife at
a pool. I
So,
didn't even think. I forgot about
she
this.
was a lifeguard.
There you go.
So, I'll be with her. Unlike Squint, I made it work.
You made it work.
We've been together almost 20 years.
There you go. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Comment Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so very much for listening. We've gotten a lot of great feedback in the last couple of weeks. We got another good one next week. It's going to be a fun one. It's Knives Out. Prepping for the next one. Glass Onion's going to come out in a couple of weeks. So we're going to do the original Knives Out next week for you. Thanks so very much for joining us. We will catch you next time.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?